so-called summer camp for central bankers to kick off. Let's go to the man who actually said that Fed Chair Jerome Powell should step down from the job as head of the Federal Reserve. And he said this a month ago. He is Allianz chief economic advisor and former CEO of PIMCO, Mohamed El-Erian, one of the most widely followed economists around the globe. You said that before we got the most recent data for the producer price index. This is prices at the wholesale level. And the PPI showed that prices went higher than expected. It almost was like a flashing warning signal saying, here comes inflation. And who knows how much longer the wholesalers can actually shoulder that. I mean, we can put the numbers up and compare them to how consumer inflation, which is still pretty calm, right? It's almost like a warning signal. Do you still believe that we should see a rate cut in September?
I do. And I do because of the employment side. So let's first deal with the employment side. Every indicator I look at, Liz, suggests that the labor market is weakening. And the risk here is that it weakens in an accelerated fashion. And if that happens, it is very difficult to come back from that shock quickly. What about prices? Yes, PPI was hotter than expected, but we learned two things today. We learned from the corporate earnings that companies are taking the increase in cost in their margins so far. Why? Because some of them don't have pricing power. So some of them don't feel confident they can pass on the higher tariffs. We've also learned from the Japanese number that the exporters to the US are also taking the hit themselves. So the pass-through will not be as high as many people feel it will be.
The pass-through not as high. Okay, so you don't see inflation rising or rearing a very ugly head for the consumer in the next several months or at all?
So I see inflation stable in the 2.5% to 3% range. I think if the Fed were to decide on a target today, as opposed to be hostage to a target from the old days, it would be in the 2.5% to 3% range. That is stable inflation for an economy going through so much structural change.
Let's educate our viewers for a second who might not be that familiar with the machinations of the Fed. Fed Chair Powell isn't the decider. It is a group of 12 voting members. So let's just be clear on that. He's not the one who says, yes, we have to cut rates or keep them on pause or hike them. That said, the president, as we said, has put a really tough pressure campaign on Powell. I mean, suddenly accusing him of overspending on redoing the Federal Reserve building. You know, he showed up at the Fed construction site and had Powell show him around. It was a little bit of a dog and pony show. All the media were there. Everybody got to sit there and watch while he showed him this cost overrun. And some of it was on point, some of it apparently wasn't. But that said, now you have the Lisa Cook issue where, and there may be some there, we don't know yet, but the allegation is that she has pulled off some mortgage fraud, allegedly. Is this where we're going, where the president is having people investigated so that he can then remove them or have them resign, which he posted, resign immediately, so that he can put his own candidates in there?
So first, one of the reasons why, on your show, in fact, a month ago, I said that Chair Powell should resign is because the longer he stays there, the more he attracts attacks on the institution. And the greater the attacks, the greater the risk to Fed independence. And all of us have an interest in an independent central bank. Don't underestimate the role of the chair. People would describe the Fed as chair-centric, meaning that the chair has enormous influence on decisions.
He's like the whip.
Right? Yeah. And people don't like going against the chair, and that's the tradition of the Fed. Also, the Fed, unlike the Bank of England, doesn't have external members. So what you get is groupthink. You get the Fed completely captive to a certain idea. Today, they're completely captive to data dependency. That's the word they prefer. The problem is data's backward-looking, and they're not taking a view of the future. Yeah, lagging in a serious way. And even we have questions about the data itself. So they don't have a strategic vision of the economy, which is very different from the previous Feds.
Well, the president can throw blowtorches and all kinds of things at Jay Powell, but in the past several meetings, and certainly going back to November, he's been questioned and he has steadfastly said this. Let's listen in.
Hi, Victoria Guido with Politico. Some of the president-elect's advisors have suggested that you should resign. If he asked you to leave, would you go?
No.
Can you follow up on, do you think that legally you're not required to leave?
No.
He's not going.
So first, I think it's right that the president should not fire the Fed chair. But that does not mean that looking at the integrity of the Fed, the chair himself should not take a step that protects the institution. He's gone in May. We will hear about a new Fed chair in the next 4 to 8 weeks. He will become a lame duck. So what exactly is he fighting for? It's not clear to me, but what's clear to me is what he's risking, and that's the independence of the central bank.
Well, I don't know, but he would say he's fighting for independence of the Fed and not being pressured, or some would say bullied, by a president. I mean, we saw this in the past where President Nixon did the same to his then Federal Reserve Chair, Arthur Burns, and that ended up in disaster. Burns cut rates, and then we had stagflation. Listen, Reagan wasn't thrilled with Paul Volcker, but Paul Volcker saved the day by keeping rates high and quelling the stagflation that we saw in the 80s.
So this is a very different situation. For Arthur Burns, he should have resigned. He shouldn't have taken the pressure from President Nixon, and he shouldn't have caused what was a huge inflationary
Okay,
issue.
but then what happens is, and you said the Fed independence, President Trump has been clear that nobody who gets the Fed job coming up should leave rates on pause. They have to cut rates.
So I was with you when I said in July they should have cut rates.
Right.
Yes, they should have cut rates, but that's an economic argument, not a political argument. That's an economic argument.
Okay, yeah, keep it with the economy, and you say that that is totally warranted. What about a 50 basis point cut then?
So we may get a repeat of last year. Remember last year in July, the Fed said, absolutely not, we're not cutting rates. Come September, they cut 50 basis points.
Correct.
This would happen if we get another weak employment report. If we get another weak employment report, then it is not flashing yellow lights. It is flashing red light about the jobs market. And the Fed will need to act, and act decisively.
We got the Fed minutes from the most recent meeting, and we were just talking with Rick Reeder of BlackRock about that. And
By the way, he's a great candidate for Fed chair.
really?
Yes.
Why?
Him and Kevin Walsh have a really good understanding of the markets. They have experience. They're really good economists, and they can communicate extremely well.
What about Christopher Waller, the Fed governor?
He's also a good candidate. So the good news is you have, among the 11, you have quite a few that are really good candidates. It's not as if we will go from Chair Powell to something much worse. No, you've got some really good candidates right now.
I don't know why you're not on the list.
You have really good candidates already on the list.
Well, if you had it between Walsh and Reeder.
I think they both are equally suited for the job, and I think they both would do a great job.
It's great to have you, Mohamed. And as we continue to watch this drama play out, Friday, what do you think he has to say? Fed Chair Powell, what must he say on Friday?
What must he say, or what will he say?
What must he say?
What he must say is signal that the employment side is becoming the thing, what they should be more worried about, and they're going to cut in September. What he may do, and I hope he doesn't, is try once again the muddled middle of what he thinks of as maximum policy optionality, but it risks the economy.
Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful for having you in studio. We appreciate it.